So MG Rob back with you. And today, we're back on the Big Heeley. Let's get going. So after cleaning up the carburetors and getting some new gaskets in there, I got them back on the car. And well, those are fun bolts to get to on the bottom there. But it is what it is, you know. I did find while I was in there that one of the floats was sunk, and you can, I don't know if you can hear that, but you can shake that and you can hear that it's full of fuel, and you can actually see a little bit leaking right there. So I had to put another float in there. Now I haven't done anything else to these as far as any kind of tuning, or I've left them just where they were because it should start and run just like that. Now I've got a new battery in it, put a couple gallons of fresh fuel in it. We've got the brakes bled, clutch bled, and all that stuff's done. So cooling system is still a bit of a question yet. We need to get it running and find out. The owner said that he had to check the cooling system every time he drove it and top it off. So there might be a leak somewhere, and I still haven't really taken a hard enough look at the hoses to see what should be replaced and what doesn't need replaced yet. But I did find that the drain petcock on the bottom, wasn't really screwed in there very tight, so it could have been dripping from there. But nonetheless, now that it's been sitting for as long as it has, once we start it and get it running, the water pump could just take a crap and start leaking all over the place. It does happen sometimes. What I've found is more often than not, on cars that I get running, they don't, but it could still happen. Now I've already changed the oil on this thing, and I primed it so that we got oil pressure. And I don't have the chokes hooked up yet, so it may not want to start really easily, but we'll find out. Now, I got oil in the carbs. When you put oil in these, you want them just so that when you drop this in here, you hit oil roughly 1/4 inch, 1/8 inch, something above the threads, and that's enough. So then now it's time to just see if it'll start. But before I start it, I want to prime the fuel system and make sure I got no leaks here and that the needles and seats are closing properly and not dumping fuel out. So it's priming. Picked up fuel in the pump right away. And I don't see any leaks. But still filling the float bowls up right now. All right, I don't see any leaks. I think we're good to go. At least see what'll happen. See if it'll start with no choke. Doesn't look like it. But maybe I can get the fire enough with one choke. Nope. Well, I'm gonna have to double check, make sure the float bowls are actually full, and go from there. All right, so I verified, got fuel in both float bowls, and since I can't operate the choke right now, we're gonna cheat a little bit. One thing that's nice about my universal solvent is it also works as a reasonably decent starting fluid. It'd be easier with two people, but I don't have another person here today. So it looks like it's going to be a little stubborn. That's all right. Well, I may have to work on the carbs a little bit more. It seems like we're far enough off that it just doesn't want to go. You know, things don't always go quite to plan, so we'll have to poke around a little bit and see why it's not wanting to start. So the thing acts like it's just not getting enough fuel to get it going. So I got the chokes hooked up now. We'll see what happens. I do have water in the cooling system right now, so we can look for leaks. So now I can do some final tweaking and tuning on the carburetors, look for leaks in the cooling system. And then be able to test drive it here real soon. So I went ahead and took the tops of the carburetors off, checked the depth of the jets. Now, one interesting thing about the Bentley manual on this versus say an MGB, they don't give you an actual initial adjustment for the jets in the manual. So I just set them at a depth that I thought was going to work and made them both the same. And then the manual also, it shows where the needles are supposed to be. It shows two different types of needles, but these needles don't actually match either one of them in the book. So these have a groove in them rather than a notch or a beginning of a taper, a defined beginning of a taper that it shows in there. So I put them where I thought they should be at. Now we'll see what happens. It does give a base setting for the idle adjustment. I put it at the base setting, so that might have to be fine-tuned yet. But it seems to be much happier now. I call that a win. Now I gotta just, once I drive it, I'll know for sure how well I've actually got it. But right now it looks pretty good. Now we're looking at a bad weekend of weather here, and right now I have a break in the weather, so I took it for a quick test drive, and I'm gonna say it did pretty well. I've done a couple more tweaks on the carbs, adjusting the idle and the richness a little bit. Got it much closer, but right now it's not quite going back down to idle every single time. It's hanging slightly, so I got to work on that. We've got a rattle in the exhaust system that needs to be taken care of, which you could hear when it was on the lift. This hose popped off while I was driving it, so we'll probably have to put a clamp on it. But, and so far, no leaks. And I've had this thing running for 20, 30 minutes and the temperature is staying rock solid. And so we're looking pretty good. Now, in order to finish this car up, I do have to get into the driver's door here. This window is off track and will not roll up or down or do anything. And we have no turn signals. So I got a couple little things to chase down, some electrical stuff, make sure the gas gauge, all that stuff's working properly. And the owner can get this thing back here pretty soon and start enjoying it. Maybe he'll actually get this thing out and drive it and use it rather than letting it sit like he has for so many years.